Good morning and welcome to NCHE's virtual conference breakout session, Voices of the Past, Present, and Future, Strategies and Tools for Including Oratory in Your History Classroom. NCHE would like to recognize the support of the sponsors which have made this virtual conference possible. We realize that this is a difficult time for everyone in the United States and across the world. We really appreciate the willingness of our presenters and participants to stay with us during this virtual conference, and we especially appreciate the support of our sponsors. Thanks also go to the National Humanities Center for its partnership in this virtual conference and to GoToWebinar for licensing support. The NHC has a wide catalog of online and in-person opportunities for scholars and educators to collaborate. Please visit their website at www.nationalhumanitiescenter.org. We encourage you to download the conference app, which has the most up-to-date information on the conference, and please take time to visit our virtual exhibit hall. There you'll find wonderful opportunities for resources and connections. My name is Sarah Drake Brown, and I will be moderating this session. You may use the questions function to type your questions or comments during the session, and we'll do our best to work those in. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, you should be able to see that on the right-hand side of your screen. For the people who are old pros, I'll depend on you to lead us in asking good questions. Following this session, please take a minute to complete our survey. In addition to providing valuable feedback, completing the survey puts you into a daily drawing for one of our special door prizes. And it is now my pleasure to turn this over to Caitlin Goodwin and Joe Cernak for Voices of the Past, Present, and Future, Strategies and Tools for Including Oratory in Your History Classroom.
Hello, everyone. Caitlin and I are presenting as Ford's Theater Oratory Fellows. I'll start with myself. My name is Joe Cernak. I am a 5th and 6th grade ELA and Social Studies teacher in Homer Glen, Illinois. Caitlin?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caitlin Goodwin. I'm a Master Oratory Fellow for Ford's Theater. I teach 7th and 8th grade social studies in upstate New York in McGraw Central School District.
So Joe, you should have control of the mouse.
Okay. All right. It is not moving to the next slide.
Right yet? All right, give it a minute. You got it now?
There we go. Yep. Thank you. All right. So Caitlin's going to get into specifics of what exactly is oratory here in a minute, but we wanted to show you an example of one of the greatest speakers of all time, Abraham Lincoln. You know, as Ford's Theater Oratory Fellows, Caitlin and I, definitely feel a connection to Abraham Lincoln. And we're fortunate enough to actually have a video of him giving one of his most famous speeches. So without further ado, here is Abraham Lincoln.
Now, for our last speaker, one of the greatest presidents in American history, Mr. Abraham Lincoln.
Fourscore and 7 minutes. We, your forefathers, were brought forth upon a most excellent adventure, conceived by our new friends, Bill and Ted. these two great gentlemen are dedicated to a proposition which was true in my time, just as it's true today. Be to each other. And, oh, dudes!
All right, so that was Abraham Lincoln giving one of his most famous speeches. So Caitlin's going to go ahead and tell you all about what oratory is.
Thanks, Joe. So oratory definition is the art of public speaking. And a lot of oratory, one way we kind of think about it is, and one thing that appealed to me about it was its natural connection to history. And Ford's Theater utilizes this actor's approach to oratory. Essentially, there was a man named Stanislavski who was a Russian theater kind of guru, and he kind of came up with this idea of to help actors with their method of delivering lines and becoming characters, and really thinking about the background of who these people were. So who is he? Where is he? What is the place that he is in? What is he doing there? Like, why is he there? What's the purpose of him being there? And what happened before he came? So basically, the background of the character that you are kind of undertaking in as an actor.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Ford's Theater Oratory program that Caitlin and I are a part of. So there are a group of teachers, and we are from all over the country. And most of us have attended a summer program at Ford's. They offer a few great options that we're going to talk to you a little bit about later, but you don't have to participate in one of those programs to apply for the oratory program. And the education department at Ford's, they're trying to honor the legacy of Abraham Lincoln. As you probably know, he was very well known for being a great speaker, being able to speak persuasively in front of a crowd. And so our main goal is to teach our students strategies and skills for public speaking. So let's go through some of those different strategies. All right, so starting with podium points. So these are broken up into two categories. We have physical ones and verbal delivery. Physical podium points, the first one would be posture, which not only is standing up straight and confidently, but maybe using your body movement to add to your delivery. We have eye contact, which obviously is looking at your audience and varying how and where you look. And then presence, which can kind of be one of the hardest ones to define, but essentially it's having the appropriate energy for a speech and connecting with your audience. Then we also have verbal podium points. So the first one of those is pace, how the speed of your delivery, emphasis, putting stress on certain words in your speech, diction, which means clearly pronouncing words, tone, which is the emotion that you are conveying through your speaking, and then finally volume, how loudly and softly the person is speaking. So these podium points can all be crafted and manipulated in certain ways to help persuade your audience to agree with your stance. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is warm and cool feedback, which I feel is one of the greatest components to our program. It essentially is constructive criticism, where the students are taught to give and receive feedback from their peers, and when doing so, they must be very specific in examples. And really what this does is it creates a safe environment in the classroom for your students to take risks, because as you probably are aware, many students and adults are uncomfortable with public speaking, so creating that safe, sort of comfortable environment is important. And then finally, we have the rhetorical triangle, ethos, pathos, and logos. And what we do is we use this in analyzing speeches or even when they write original speeches. And students can learn these various forms of argument and how to use them appropriately and balance those in a given speech.
Okay, so one of the things that appeals to me the most about our program is not only the kids obviously being able to be better at communicating and, you know, the simple things that sometimes seem to be going by the wayside as looking someone in the eye when you're talking to them. But for me as a history teacher, I have loved seeing what my kids can do as far as taking different historical speeches and making them, being able to analyze them using Sam Weinberg's historical thinking skills. For those of you who are not familiar with Sam Weinberg, I'm sure most of you are. He is from the Stanford History Education Group. He's professor at Stanford, and he wrote many books, or a few books on navigating kind of media primary sources, but also more recently his work has included doing some work on how to basically navigate media in this day and age for validity. So Weinberg's methods, which may be a review to most of you, are broken up into really 4 parts. Sourcing, which is basically taking any media that we are looking at, be it a speech or a primary document or, you know, a clip from the news, who created this, when did they create it, what is the author's perspective or background, and why are they writing this or creating this. As we all know, these things matter. Purpose and bias, you maybe use things like the soapstone method in your classes, speaker, occasion, audience, purpose. It's been really rewarding to watch my students be able to translate this skill into analyzing the speeches. Another really great part of how oratory blends with historical thinking skills is the contextualizing, which is a huge piece. Being able to blend that actor's approach with the historical thinking skills in terms of, you know, what was the speaker kind of doing before this? How do we understand what the greater purpose is in this speech? What other social movements are going on? What's going on in society at this time? So for contextualizing in the historical thinking skills, you have when and where it was created, what was different, what was the same. Some other questions you might think of are, well, who had rights during this time? Who didn't have rights? What groups were being represented or marginalized? We'll get into that a little bit later with the activity that I'm going to share with you that I've used in my classroom for this, my interview technique, which is kind of loosely based on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Corroborating the sources, this has been really fantastic. Speeches are just one more piece of evidence that we can use when we're analyzing historical events. How do people's speeches, how do they agree with or disagree with other sources that we've read? What other documents are missing from the narrative? And, you know, again, if we can corroborate our sources, then we can make sure we can better know their credibility and their validity. And close reading speeches has really been an amazing skill that the kids have picked up on more since I started doing the oratory program. Being able to identify authors' claims and evidence, this goes into that the rhetorical triangle. How is their language indicate their perspective and their purpose? What type of language do they use? So looking at those rhetorical devices like repetition, onomatopoeia, the things that we analyze when we're talking about the rhetorical triangle. So all of these really blend seamlessly with your history classroom being able to weave it in as analyzing sources. So as I said before, kind of inspired by this idea of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure when all the speakers come in at the end and kind of give a little talk to everyone. In doing this for a few years, I had found that the place where my students were kind of lacking the most was that contextualization piece and how that would relate to how they performed their speeches. So I wanted them to get a greater understanding of how what people were, where speakers were coming from when they were giving their speeches. So I came up with this idea that basically is blending the actor's approach and the historical thinking by doing an interview. So basically, each student takes their historic speech that they've done. So for example, I'll just use Eisenhower's D-Day speech. Each student is given a pre-interview questionnaire that practices all of those historical thinking skills. So they do research on who is Eisenhower and what is the who is the audience of this document, what's the purpose, and what's the historical context of the speech. So they might be questions like, tell me about yourself, Mr. Eisenhower. What were you, where, even background as far as how did you grow up? Where are you from? Are you from a small town, a big city, those kind of things? Then what are you doing now as, when you are giving this speech, what is your job? Who are the people that you spend your time with? What types of things are you in charge of? And then moving into contextualizing, the interview question that they would be asked are things like, what else is going on while this is happening? What is America at peace or at war? What things are different than they are today? And then finally, that those rhetorical devices, kind of how are you going to, what's your purpose in giving this speech? How do you plan on reaching your audience? Those kind of questions. So each student spends, we had a good solid 2 days of class research, getting the background of the person, the time period, and the speech itself. What was really awesome about this activity is that the kids were able to practice giving a speech, basically not giving a full oratory performance, but getting comfortable standing in front of the class and fielding questions. So that was really one great outcome. Another one was that all of the students in the room were getting more historical background on some speech or time period, which was really excellent as well. And then when we gave our final oratory performances, the students who were listening to what you came up with, or the historical circumstances and the background of your speaker and your speech, they had a kind of a greater appreciation of how it was delivered and a greater understanding of it, and were able to offer better feedback. So ultimately, when the students have a much better understanding of the speaker, the audience, the purpose, the time period, what else was going on, and the language and rhetoric that the speaker's using, it made for huge gains in their overall performance of their speeches.
Okay, so the NCSS, I'm going to read you the quote here. Young people need strong tools for and methods of clear and disciplined thinking in order to traverse successfully the worlds of college, career, and civic life. And so these come from the framework for the standards. And I'm going to share with you an example of how one of the oratory fellows in our program used this. So go to the next slide. All right, so Gianni Clarkson is one of the fellows, one of the master fellows in our program, and he came up with this project where he had his students who were studying the oratory program do a project called How to Generate Passion in Local Government and Create Empathy in Our Students. And basically what we're showing here is this oratory, the studying of oratory can really help the students connect to their local government, local issues, local civics. And so few steps that he did here, students becoming involved in local causes and problem solving. So before a student says something like, some problem in their community is the fault of the government, okay? The student must plan on how to get more information about that. And so they have to identify the problem. Maybe it's cleaning up dirty or unsafe parks in the neighborhood. Maybe it has something to do with certain crime in the area. And so they identify a certain problem that they want to research more about, and then they have to get to their research. And so they're going to be looking at how serious or widespread a particular problem might be. Why is it a problem that should be handled by local government? Should anyone else take responsibility for helping to solve this problem in the community? Is there an existing law or policy maybe dealing with this problem? Who in the government do we need to speak to about this? And what other maybe groups might you want to speak with in the community that could potentially help, fix this problem? And then where the oratory really comes in is explaining the problem. And so once you've done all this research and gathering all this information, presenting this problem to your class or to the teacher or to administration or whoever needs to hear about this problem, which then will lead you to creating an action plan. And this action plan, you're going to set up an interview potentially with someone in the local government. Maybe it's a phone interview or an in-person interview, but you need to speak with somebody who is on the front lines, can actually make a difference and make the change that you're looking for. Going into this meeting, you need to be prepared with facts and data, and obviously know your action plan very clearly. And maybe most importantly, how would you fund this particular plan? After you've done all this, hopefully either being part of carrying out the plan or at least watching the local government carry out your plan, that is such a rewarding thing for anyone, but most specifically, a middle school or junior high student or even high school student. So whether this plan is implemented or successful or not, the student will learn so many valuable lessons in this whole process. Simple things like how to email, a government official formally and properly, how to set up a meeting, how to prepare for this meeting, and just things that are going to help the students in everyday life and definitely in a future career.
And just to add to that too, those of you who may be New York teachers, we have our civic engagement piece for the our framework. Also with the new civic requirements or potential seal for, they're talking about doing a seal on diplomas for civics. So this could be another way to connect that as well.
Absolutely. Okay, Caitlin?
Okay, so being in this program for the past 4 years has really helped me to see some really phenomenal results in the classroom with my students, and self-reporting, at the end of each time we do complete our oratory study for the year, I always ask students to kind of reflect on what the benefits they're seeing themselves for this. And what they report back is really so rewarding, and they will say things like, I'll know how to actually interview for a job now, or, if I ever have to talk in front of anybody, I won't be so nervous. Some of them have said it really has helped me come out of like overcome my fears of talking in front of people. And we implement this program specifically at the middle school level through Ford's, but so the fact that we have kids who are anywhere from 10 to 14 gaining these skills and self-reporting that they feel very much more confident is really phenomenal. I know that I couldn't have done that when I was in junior high, but it's been really amazing to see. I also ended up creating an elective course for senior high students, and some of them have come back to work to continue their oratory growth, and we have, they're really set up to be much more successful, having had some training on, just how to, it's just being a better communicator in general, which, we all know in this kind of day of overwhelming technology and kids not really having, as much face-to-face interaction, that learning these skills and practicing these skills is really important, and important for us teachers to continue to encourage. I've had student leaders go out into the community through 4-H that have participated in oratory and done really fantastic things through local organizations. I've noticed in terms of respectful collaboration and empathy for others, a much more positive classroom environment with the study of oratory. Many of you have maybe done the kind of classroom protocol where you say, oh, I agree with what so-and-so had to say, or to add to what so-and-so had to say. I noticed that they are doing that in a much more respectful way. They feel much more confident expressing themselves. Joe, do you want to add any of what you've been seeing?
Yeah. So, I have a 5th and a 6th grade class. My 5th grade class is really challenging, and it's kind of, it came in as just sort of a toxic group. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but I have seen, even in the, since the beginning of this school year, how that has changed, and it's really led to maybe helping the students. I don't know, like it's kind of gone hand in hand with their maturity growth, but I don't know, just the way that they speak with each other, and it has helped kind of really get rid of that toxic environment and really create more of a respectful and empathetic one. All right. So we're gonna now show, oh, I'm sorry, Caitlin, you go ahead and talk about the programs at Ford's.
Okay, well, Ford's Theater, first of all, their education department is top notch. I've been fortunate enough to work with organizations around the country for professional development, and I can say hands down that they have been the very top. They create these incredible programs with rich sources and incredible place-based experiences, and it's just been an absolute honor to work with them, and I've gained so much over the past few years working with them. So the Ford's website, which we haven't really talked about too much yet, but it is a wealth of resources. There are speeches, there are virtual tours, there are primary sources related to the Lincoln assassination and remembering Lincoln collection. I mean, it's endless. There are some phenomenal opportunities for teachers, which is actually how I ended up getting involved in oratory. I had participated, I want to say 5 years ago now, in an NEH, the Seat of War and Peace, it was called, and it was about the Lincoln assassination, Civil War Washington as a kind of place of turmoil during this time, being, geographically kind of in between the North and South. But that program no longer exists, but it has kind of taken the set in stone 1 week summer program has taken the place of that, basically. It's amazing. You go and visit many different local sites, not just related to the assassination, but to the Civil War in general, including Lincoln's Cottage and Grant's, what's the place up there? I'm sorry, in Arlington, Grant's house in Arlington.
The Arlington House, I believe.
Yeah. Sorry about that. And Civil War Washington is another option of a program that is another 1 week program where I think participants still stay in the historic Willard Hotel and learn more about Civil War in Washington. I know when I did the program, we visited we went on the trail of Booth, and we went to the Surratt House in Maryland, which was really interesting. Visited different statues called Lincoln the Emancipator, and talked about how when monuments are built being a reflection of the time that they're built in rather than of the thing itself. Obviously the Lincoln Memorial, which has been great. And our National Oratory program, our fellowship program has been absolutely incredible. You work through the program in a series of stages, and you start out, you have a teaching artist who comes to virtually or physically to your classroom if it works out that way, to help students get accustomed to that kind of actor's approach, that Stanislavski that we were talking about before. Actors giving their part, and then us teachers giving our part in terms of history, and it's not just for history teachers, the program. We actually have some music teachers and English teachers, and what else do we have?
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking of the language arts, music, social studies.
Yeah, well, everyone brings something to the table, which is, it's become this really fantastic group to work with professionally and collaborate with. And so as you work through the program, you learn, you bring students. We have students who the culminating experience for 2 of your students is that they're selected to come with you to Washington to perform on their speech on stage at Ford's Theater, after practicing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the spot where King gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. It's incredibly rewarding to see what the results that our students gain, the confidence that they gain, and just watching them is phenomenal through this program.
All right, so we're going to show sort of the effect of this program. So this is Angelica. She is one of my 6th grade students. And when she started in my classroom at the beginning of the year, she was, really shy, really quiet. I really had to kind of, I never really heard her voice very often unless I sort of made her talk, I guess. But and to see her sort of grow through this program, and maybe mostly because of this program or in part of, it's been really rewarding and amazing to watch. So I'm going to show you her first speech here. This particular one was done at the beginning of the year. It is a cold read, so I literally gave her the piece of paper. She got to read it over a couple times, but then stand up in front of the class and just deliver the speech. Okay, and I'll show you how that looks.
407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot concentrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have concentrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know or no longer remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here.
All right, so that was a cold read that she did, and overall I thought she did very well.
I agree, that's a good start.
Yeah, and in full disclosure, I loop my students. So she was in my class last year. So she came in because last year was my first year in the Ford's program. She definitely came in with experience. Okay, so at the beginning of 5th grade, she really didn't talk at all and was extremely shy. But you're going to see now what the effect of the preparation is. So she's going to give a performance of Angelina Grimke's speech on slavery. And so the students prepared each of their speeches somewhere around 2 months. And so they would look at the different rhetorical devices that were used in the speech. They would alter podium points and sort of manipulate those to increase the effectiveness of the speech. She researched who Grimke was. I know Caitlin earlier talked about, contextualizing historical speeches and thinking skills in using that interview strategy. We did that. And so Angelica was able to, research who was Angelina Grimke, where did she deliver the speech, who was in the audience that day, just really getting the context of the speech itself in order to make decisions within the speech as far as how to deliver each line and each word and getting down to that level. Okay, so we're going to now see the performance of that.
Do you ask, what has the North to do with slavery? Here it's those voices without tell us that the spirit of slavery is here, that has been roused to wrath by our conventions. For surely liberty will not foam and tear herself with rage because her friends are multiplied daily, and meetings are held in quick succession to set forth her virtues and extend her peaceful kingdom. As a Southerner, I feel that it is my duty to stand up here tonight and bear testimony against slavery. I have seen it. I have seen it. I know it has horrors that can never be described. I was brought up under its wing. I witnessed for many years its demoralizing influences and its destructiveness human happiness. I've never seen a happy slave. I've seen him dance in his chains. It is true, but he was not happy. There's a wide difference between happiness and mirth. Man cannot enjoy happiness while his manhood is destroyed. Slaves, however, may be and sometimes are mirthful. When hope is extinguished, they say, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. Women of Philadelphia, allow me, as a Southern woman with much attachment to the land of my birth, to entreat you to come up to this work. Especially, let me urge you to petition. Men may settle this and other questions at the ballot box, but you have no such right. It is only through petitions that you can reach your legislator. It is peculiarly your duty to petition. It was remarked in England that women did much to abolish slavery in her colonies. Nor are they not idle, but the zeal and love, the faith and works of our English sisters quicken ours. That while the slaves continue to suffer, and when they shout for deliverance, we may feel the satisfaction of having done what we could. Thank you.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing, right? And as someone who's, I guess, seen this particular girl just grow over the last 2 years, and I do really believe, and a lot of it is due to this program, the confidence level, the ability to get up in front of a crowd. I mean, at the beginning of last year, there's no way I could have ever imagined her doing that speech in that way. So it really is rewarding to see that now.
It's phenomenal. She's such a fantastic example to show. Another thing that has been really awesome to see is that kids are being more confident and choosing speeches like that have resonated with them. We have a teacher in residence program at Ford's, and this summer one of our fellows, Karen Ritchie, did a an amazing job of collecting more modern speeches from the Emma Gonzalez of the Parkway shootings. We had some LGBTQ women's issues, racial issues. We had all kinds of more modern speeches, and it's been really great to see kids choose those speeches to maybe have self-expression if they're, you know, LGBTQ or things that resonate with them, and choose these powerful modern speeches like Greta Thunberg, and that's another really amazing part of this program.
Absolutely. All right, so that is our presentation. We're going to go ahead and close this down, but thank you so much for joining us today. It's definitely been oh, go ahead, Caitlin. You got
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure to direct you again to the Ford's website. All of the materials for the oratory program are available on fords.org. The teachers tab has everything, if we had been physically there with everyone, we had folders to distribute to everyone, but everything is available on the Ford's website, very easily accessible. The podium points, our teacher generated materials,
lesson plans, I believe.
yes.
And then you mentioned earlier, I know a lot of people, you know, this week and recently are looking for things to do online, being, you know, stuck at home. So there's the virtual tour on there. It's just a great website, even to have your children or your students, whoever, sort of just kind of get lost on.
And feel free, if you contact the Ford's Education Department or Joe or myself, we are more than happy to direct you to any resources that we have or can help with the program. We really are truly, and Ford's is right on board with trying to, you know, make oratory and public speaking something that we see in more classrooms and we see more around the country, and really truly giving kids the tools that they need to be able to express their voices.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Your slides will be available through NCHE. If it's okay with you, could we also include the slide of the young girl there giving that speech? Is that okay? Do you have her parents' permission?
It is. I actually got her parents' permission to use it. The videos in the slides anyways.
Perfect. So we'll definitely have that up. And I really just appreciated your presentation here from numerous angles, but I think what you've really done is outlined how history is such an integrating discipline and how it enables us to bring in so many other things that at the high school level, sometimes we put into different boxes and we think of as being under the purview of our colleagues in English language arts. At the elementary level, to an extent, you're much more fortunate in that you're expected to do what we should all be doing all the time and integrating all these different aspects. And so you've both really demonstrated how that is possible no matter which area and grade level we work in, though. Thank you so much. I wanted to remind all of our attendees to please, once you get the evaluation, fill that out so that you can be registered for one of our door prizes. You're probably tired of hearing that by now, but stick with us for our door prizes, please. And then in just about 15 minutes at 11 o'clock Eastern, please join us on Zoom for our next keynote, which will be addressing World War I. Thanks again so much to Caitlin and Joe, and I'll continue to see everyone else virtually for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.